Okay, welcome to How to Build Your Own Home. We've got something interesting for you today. My daughter has some questions that she's going to pose to me, and we're about 20 or so questions, and they're overrated and underrated questions. I don't know what these are. I promise you, I haven't seen. I've tried to take a peek, but I couldn't read that far away because I have bifocals. So we're going to go through these, have some fun, and see how I respond to them.
First one, multi-generational living.
It's underrated. It's the new future. And if you're not on board, you're going to miss the opportunity or you're not going to be prepared for the need when it comes. So, just one thing in mind, the boomer generation is massive. I'm the youngest member of that boomer generation. I won't retire for another 6, 7 years. That generation is retiring on average 10,000 people a day. They're not all going to go to a retirement place. A lot of families are going to need to have them come into their home. That's a multi-generational home. They're underrated, and soon they're going to be the trend, the thing that has to happen. Start thinking about the home you need to build with that in mind.
Okay. Rooftop decks.
Rooftop deck.
Rooftop decks.
You mean a deck?
A deck on the
A
roof.
roof? I don't like them. So is that underrated or overrated?
That's overrated.
That's overrated.
Overrated.
Avoid them. Avoid them at all costs.
Not covered.
Not covered. Very bad. Stay away from that. It's a matter of times when you're going to have a leak into that home. It's not something I'd recommend. End of story.
Next, vaulted ceilings.
That's a really tough one. If I'm in a cold climate, they're overrated because it's going to be a cost on your utilities you may not need to accommodate. If you're in a southern part of the world, southern part of the United States, you might like that to help, move heat up and out away from the living space. So it's really dependent upon where you live. Underrated in some places and overrated in others. I hope
Well,
that-
you personally, do you think it's overrated or underrated? Vaulted.
I don't like anything vaulted over 11 feet. That's just me because I can maintain efficiency better.
Next one, RV garages.
That's overrated. RVs are already a losing proposition. You're losing value the minute you buy that thing, the minute you drive it off the lot. So you're going to build $100 and $200, $300,000 structure to protect something that's losing value already. I'm sorry. I said enough there.
Overrated for Keith, but property resale for Kinsey, definitely underrated. Tile shingles.
Stay away from them. Bad news. All the fires in California are because of embers and high wind. They get underneath that tile. And what's underneath that tile?
Wood.
Tar paper,
Oh,
oil. So the high wind and the embers getting underneath there, your house is gonna burn from the top down.
and then it's wood.
Yeah, and that's wood on top of that. So those are overrated. Stay away from them.
Okay, aluminum shingles.
Underrated. The radiant barrier, and you know how powerful aluminum is. Volcanologists wear an aluminum jumpsuit and it refracts heat back out that way. So it helps them survive all that heat. So imagine that on your roof during a fire.
Heated floors.
That's got to be properly rated. If I'm in Alaska or even the far north of Canada or even the Dakotas, I would want to have that kind of heat in my floor system. Very, very beneficial. But if I'm in Florida, if I'm in south of Texas or even San Diego, why? Why do I need that? It's a cost that you don't need. And if you do use it, it might be just a few weeks of the year and that's it. So it's underrated in some places and overrated in others. So that's a proper rating situation.
Okay, barn dominiums.
You know how to pick ones, but you're picking fights with me here. It's really an appeal. I think for me, it's overrated because I don't like a metal building that has that high conductivity of cold and heat right into the home, and you're gonna have to fight all that. And I don't know about the wind ratings and all that. I wouldn't build them because they're not beautiful for me. I'd rather build a beautiful home and a home that's a little more efficient. And I'm sure people can make it efficient. It's just a massive open space. They're going for the cheapest square footage you can. Well, I can build a more beautiful open space than any dominium can build, and it would be appealing to the environment, to the local community. They would appreciate it, and they're gonna like it because it's not so commercially. So they're overrated.
Going to open concept living.
Open concept living, that's kind of a proper rating thing. It depends on whether or not you have bedrooms that are accessible to that open concept living, and if you have bathrooms open to that open concept living. As long as you don't have access to either of those from that open concept living, then it's appealing. But the minute you put a bathroom right there in an open concept living, that's not appealing. Nobody wants that. Same thing with a bedroom. If there's noise in this room and there's a bedroom right there and a door right there, nobody can have some privacy on that. So if you can have dens or other rooms or kitchens and stuff like that as part of that open concept, that's great. But you got to avoid those two things, and it works great.
Spray foam insulation. What? You gotta say.
I got to say something there. That's overrated. I'm a natural builder, so I like wood, rock, mineral wool, gypsum. I like the natural products in a home. I don't like the synthetic stuff. And when fire comes, it's not going to liquefy. I mean, you take rock wool, you take spray foam, rock wool, mineral wool. It's not going to burn. It's not going to produce mold, and the mice are not going to eat it. Mice are going to eat this, and it can liquefy in the heat, and it's bad news. I can understand the spray foam can you use to fill up cracks. I can understand it in some places underneath the crawl space at the very end of the house, under the slab foundation. I can understand it in a lot of applications. But as a general rule, spraying foam into my home, I will never do that.
Next. Okay, LVP flooring.
Luxury vinyl flooring. That's underrated. I'm on a luxury vinyl floor, and I have a dog. Where'd she go? She's around here somewhere. She's got long nails. Okay, when she runs, she likes to scratch something. I don't see a scratch anywhere on this luxury vinyl floor anywhere. If I had wood on here, where do you imagine all the scratches we'd have?
Would be bad.
It'd be pretty bad, even with a super hardwood. So they're great. The one I have on my floor here, it's actually impermeable to water. Water can't get underneath it. It lasts a long time. If you got kids, it's phenomenal, and most people can install that themselves. And then when you get in the retirement age, then of course take it out if you don't have any dogs left. I can't tell you how many dogs a dog has gone doo-doo 1 and 2 on this floor, and it's super easy to clean.
This one I'm excited for. Permanent exterior lighting, like Christmas lights. Permanent.
Oh, there's a lot of neat products coming out that are not just like holiday lighting for Christmas, but it's thematic lighting, and they're part of the accent of the home. And some of them you can turn on with just one light, 1 or 2 lights every 4 feet apart, or a whole stream of lights,
Yeah, you can change the color.
orange, green, light, flickering, all that. So they're underrated because a lot of people don't know the things that you can do with that. And it's a great security item. Their LED lighting is low cost to maintain and keep. And I'm a really big fan of keeping a home lit. I'm sorry that I am, because that's a security measure for your home, and it's great for your security cameras. So having some lighting on the exterior of your home is a real plus. And if you can tap that into some solar, then it's lit all the way through 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then until it fades and then the battery needs to be recharged. But however you do it, for cost efficiency, it's a plus. Lighting your home, provided the HOA has, they call them dark sky coding in their HOA. They like dark sky, so you want to take that lighting and shine it down as much as you can. Don't shine it up. Underrated, definitely.
Underrated. Okay. Outdoor kitchens.
Um, that's overrated. The cost on those is ridiculous. I've seen some outdoor kitchens that can approach 30, 60, $150,000. Why? When you're only going to use it how many times in the year? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Depends on the person.
I would prefer to have it just a simple barbecue. And that can be a portable barbecue, because how often do barbecues go bad over a period of time? It's like a restaurant, that kitchen gets so gunked up and ugh. And so people go through barbecues pretty quick. So why have a permanent fixture when you can just, keep somebody employed?
Make your kitchen bigger
Yeah,
for entertaining.
yeah,
I would rather do that.
I'd rather make the kitchen. I'd put it all into a really phenomenal kitchen. than I would in an outdoor kitchen.
Next one, tiny homes.
That's overrated. Way overrated. I've been talking with families across the nation building an ADU. I've seen accessory dwelling units that are super tiny, around 400 square feet. You know what the cost? I just saw one yesterday, and I'm seeing them at 365, 425 a square foot. Now, why are they so high in square footage? Because you have to get full crews, a full framing crew, concrete crew, all that to come and do a small little job. They'd rather do a 2,500 square foot pad on grade than a 400 square foot home. And they're going to charge you a higher price to build all that. And everyone thinks the tiny homes is the fad. And if it's not on a permanent foundation, it's like an RV. It's losing its value the minute you start to put money onto it. If it's on wheels, it's just really bad. And if it's super tiny, then you're not going to get the value out of it that you're putting into it. So I'm sad to say, but it's a dirty little secret that building bigger is cheaper. That's why I think the tiny home fad is going to go away, and you're going to see multi-generational replacing the tiny home in a really big way.
Paver driveways.
Those are underrated. Pavers are roughly 7 times stronger than concrete. They breathe, they percolate water back into the soil. They last so much longer. If you put an asphalt drive on, all right, you're going to have to coat that and treat that within the first 6 years, all right? And then it's going to be toast in about 10, maybe 12, all right? So paver drives are a huge benefit. I did a paver drive next door to an HOA, a small little subdivision next to me. Those pavers were still there. If they did asphalt, they would have been having to replace that by now. And they're going to be there for life. And if you have to replace a small section, you take them out, put in new ones, done. And why we don't do pavers, I don't know. But I'm doing them on a couple of jobs I've got coming up. And they're just a fraction of the cost more than concrete. If you do the concrete at least 4 inches thick. If you start cutting it and you go 3.5 or 3 inches thick, it's going to break and bust up. And it's going to look like garbage in just a few years. So they're really underrated. Everyone should consider pavers.
Next, zero maintenance yards. So artificial turf, really. What do you think about artificial turf?
I used to think it was really cool, and there's a lot of new products out there, but it's overrated for one simple reason. You can't grow big trees in artificial turf. Right now in our community, our city had a wonderful idea to give people a discount by going xeriscape, meaning getting rid of grass and replacing with gravel to avoid all the loss of water. Do you want shade around your home to help offset cooling costs in the summer? If you do, you can't go xeriscape or zero maintenance. You have to have some water to those trees. That's why I prefer grass to some degree. If the grass is done right and you've got big shade trees that shouldn't take that much water, compared to the way a lot of people do things. I believe in watered grass with big shade trees or fruit trees. If you look at my front yard, I've got 6 fruit trees in my front yard and 2 massive oak trees. All right. And they're helping to keep the shade on the soil so I don't lose by evaporation. I really want to percolate back into the water table, back into the ground to help those trees stay alive. So they're overrated.
Next one, solar panels.
That's a proper placement of rating. If I'm out in the boondocks somewhere, I need extra power, and you may need it to offset some of your costs. And I do mountain builds. I do a lot of stuff like that. They're out and away. And the solar would help offset some issues that could with dirty power. There's a lot of counties with dirty power. Well, they get shut off without a moment's notice for an hour or two, or even half a day. So the solar panels would be a nice offset to make sure that the refrigerator, which is very low amperage requirement to maintain that, to keep it going. Otherwise, you can lose some. So the solar panels with a battery are great for a lot of people. I'm just worried about the application on the roof, and if they're not applied right, you've got a big problem. If you don't have what's called a permanent cool roof on your roof that will last longer than the solar plant panels, if you don't do that, you're not doing it right. You want to make sure the roof lasts longer than the solar panels, and that's the caveat. If you don't do it right, it could be a real big problem. So you have to be informed. They could be underrated if if you're properly informed, then you can utilize the value of them.
Sliding patio doors, large ones, the large slides.
They're underrated because I don't like French doors. French doors are terrible. You should have asked. That's probably the next question, right? So I'm thinking straight. They're easier to seal. They're a little stronger, and they maintain a better weather protection. They cut down on the wind, and there's some that you can actually move with your pinky, and they're that smooth and efficient. You really have to spend some money to do it right, and if you do it right, then it's underrated, and you see the real value of it. But if you go about it dark and uninformed, you get what's cheap, that's overrated, and then you're upset, and then you're saying, "Oh, these doors are overrated, and they're terrible." That's because you didn't get informed, you didn't research, you didn't find the best door you can do. We've done 18-foot sliders that are 9 foot, 10 foot tall.
Mhm.
And when you open those up, you've got almost a 4 to 6 foot opening like that. And if you have a big patio with a big view, we did on a home about a year and a half ago. It was phenomenal. It was great. So they open up air, they open up light. They're awesome for that. What's the next question?
Okay, real quick French doors.
Yeah. Don't do them, stay away from them. Now,
There-
you can do them, but let me tell you, just get a really good manufacturer, a really good door, so that when it closes, the best ones are that when one side locks permanently, unless you need to open it for whatever reason, and when that's fixed really, really well done, then the other door can shut. The worst you can do is when they open like this all the time, and you've got cracks and window and air coming through there. You want to get it so that there's an actual good weather seal right in there when you close the one door open and shut. And then you open it when it's a nice day. So you just be careful on those. I've seen some really bad situations where cold night and you see the air outside and it's just coming in through the bottom of those. Let's stay away from that.
Brick accents, so like brick and stone accents.
That's a really good question. I think they're underrated, generally speaking, but they could be overrated if they're installed terribly. If you don't have a rain screen behind the brick to wick water and moisture away from the home, then all that beautiful brick you put on there is for nothing. It's an absolute waste. So if it's properly installed, then they're underrated. If they're poorly installed, then it's overrated, and oh, that's a total waste.
Wraparound porch.
That's underrated. I love porches. I just don't like them exposed. I like them covered. So if you ever do a porch, cover it. Why? That comes back from a young man that I grew up with my grandpa, and he built a bed and breakfast, and he put exterior decks outside of every single bedroom, and they were all exposed. They had nothing covered. And I had to, when in my teens and in my 20s, when my wife and I got married, I had to demolish those decks. I had to rebuild them and put a better product and material on them. And so if you don't do it right and you don't have your deck is totally exposed, you're gonna say, "Oh man, decks are underrated or they're overrated." You don't want to do that. You want to say that everything that you do is underrated. Well, I did everything that's underrated. Didn't you know about this? This is the way you do it. You wouldn't be so unhappy if you did it this way. So if you're not informed about the proper way to build decks and cover them, especially over conditioned space, you could be facing some serious damage down the road. So they're underrated because I love them, and they're underrated as far as you know how to do them right.
Next one, chain gutters.
Chain gutters.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Have you seen those?
I think they're underrated because they do have an application. Um, If in the cold climates, the only problem is it will build up ice on there, and that could have a massive weight on the eave and pretty much tear down your rain gutter. So you have to have a coil inside there that would heat up and defrost all that ice buildup. But if you're in the southern climates, that's great because it's just going to wash down and you're not going to get clogged with the rain gutters. It's just going to wash it. And it's nice looking when you look at them. So it's underrated, very, very underrated in just about any climate. And then keep in mind, if you use them in the winter with a snow load, that ice needs to be defrosted and it needs to have a hot coil on it.
Last one, how to build your own home.
That's underrated. Howtobuildyourownhome.com is underrated. There's a lot of people out there that are popping up. I've got a list. I got some lists and buy my home system, and it's just not well organized. I think it's underrated, and I'll just toot my own horn. Is that okay if I toot my own?
Yeah, toot your own horn.
I was a teacher for 15, 20 years, and so I came from teaching English and communications and a lot of different courses. And so that background I put right into construction to help people manage their own build. And it's all there at How to Build Your Own Home. The First Steps course is probably the awakening. And then you get excited and you see you can do that and you're properly informed and you know the cost per square foot and you know how to figure out the cost per square foot because that course helps you figure that out. Now you're prepared and you go into the self-managed course, and they're both underrated. And I've had a lot of people tell me I should charge a lot more, but I want to help a lot of people. So the prices are very nominal. And I have not had one complaint in the 3, 4 years I've been doing this course. I have not had one complaint or even one request for, I had only one person asked for um, money back because he pressed the button accidentally, didn't mean to buy. And I just gave him his money back. But that's it. Out of the thousands of students who've used the program, it's seriously underrated. And I can say that with confidence in just what we've created together, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's it. That's overrated, underrated. Maybe we'll do this again, come up with some more questions.
Yeah.
It would be nice to do that. I do that to her on finishes and selections. I'm gonna stick her to it next time. So you better be prepared, girl.
I
You
will.
ready?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Hope this was great. I'll have you guys again. This is Keith with How to Build Your Own Home, talking about overrated and underrated.